What if I told you that the real transformation of the Atlanta Falcons roster might just be getting started after the draft? Everything you thought was settled could still be very much in flux. With the 2025 NFL Draft now officially behind us, the door is wide open for a wave of veteran free agent signings that won't impact the team's compensatory picks. The front office has already shown a willingness to leverage the future for immediate gains, which means we could be on the brink of some pivotal moves. Buckle up, because things are about to get interesting. After May 1st, NFL teams can sign free agents without those deals affecting the compensatory pick formula for the following year's draft. This formula is a closely guarded secret within the league, but here's what we do know. If a team loses enough talent in free agency without bringing in much in return, they could end up with some bonus draft picks. However, if they start signing players too early, they risk canceling out those bonuses. That's why savvy teams wait, and the Falcons find themselves in this exact situation. Atlanta made 5 selections in the 2025 draft, addressing key needs and investing in their future. However, not all issues have been resolved, and there are still some glaring holes on the roster. Let's take a look at 4 players still available on the market who could step in immediately and potentially alter the course of this season. First up, and perhaps the most intriguing option, is defensive end Za'Darius Smith. Last season, Smith split his time between the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions after a midseason trade to Detroit following an injury to Aiden Hutchinson. He stepped into a crucial role and thrived, finishing the season with 9 sacks. To put that into perspective, that number would have led the entire Falcons defense last year. But it's not just about the sacks. Smith has consistently generated pressure over the years. In 2023, despite officially logging only 5.5 sacks in Cleveland, he was such a force that the Browns rewarded him with a 2-year contract. That speaks volumes about his impact. Smith's career has taken him from Baltimore to productive stints in Green Bay and Minnesota. He has experience playing both as a traditional 4-3 defensive end and as a 3-4 outside linebacker. This kind of versatility is rare and incredibly valuable, especially for a defense that is still trying to define its identity. The Falcons have already brought in Morgan Fox through free agency and drafted promising talents like James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker, but adding a player like Smith could elevate their defensive game significantly. But let's be honest. None of the young players on the roster are polished, proven-edge threats just yet. Ruka Hororo was drafted, but he's likely more of an interior disruptor in the mold of Grady Jarrett rather than a true edge rusher. Now picture this scenario. On first and second downs, you rotate in Morgan Fox and Zach Harrison. Then on third and long, you bring in Za'Darius Smith, fresh legs and laser-focused, ready to wreak havoc on opposing quarterbacks. Even if he only plays about 15 snaps a game, Smith could make a significant impact. The Falcons have struggled to find a consistent pass rush threat for years, so why settle when a player like Smith is available? Here's a quick trivia break. Since 2016, only 5 rookies have recorded double-digit sacks in their debut NFL season, with the last being Micah Parsons in 2021. So, before anyone places those lofty expectations on James Pierce or Jalen Walker, it's important to remember that the odds aren't in their favor. If anyone on this roster is likely to hit 10 sacks this year, the smart money might be on Leonard Floyd. Now, let's shift our focus to the secondary, where another name continues to linger on the market. Cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. This one is puzzling. Why is he still unsigned? The best theory is that the shoulder injury he suffered last season may be more serious than initially reported. If that's the case, teams could be hesitant about his long-term durability. However, when Samuel is healthy, he's a standout player. In each of his first 3 seasons, he recorded 2 interceptions and posted double-digit pass deflections. That kind of consistency is hard to come by. Last year, playing in a zone-heavy defense with the Chargers, Samuel looked right at home. Atlanta, which also relies heavily on zone coverage, would be a near-perfect fit for him. It's not like the Falcons found their answer at cornerback in the draft. They passed on a traditional outside corner and instead loaded up on hybrid safeties and developmental defensive backs like Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman. While Clark Phillips and D'Alford show promise, would you really prefer them over a healthy Asante Samuel Jr. if you're aiming for the playoffs? Terry Fontenot has already shown he's willing to dip into the 2026 draft capital, giving up a first and a fifth-round pick. That's not a conservative move, it's a clear signal that the team is all in and needs to win this year. So if a player like Samuel is available and could elevate this secondary to no-fly zone status alongside Jesse Bates, A.J. Terrell, Richie Grant, and Mike Hughes, how do you not at least make the call? And just to stir the pot a bit, let me ask you this. Would you rather head into the 2025 season with a cornerback group led by Terrell Hughes and developmental players like Bowman and Bryant, or would you prefer to sign a veteran like Samuel and ensure you have some real depth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now let's keep this momentum going because the next two names on this list aren't just fillers, they could be the kind of under-the-radar additions that championship-caliber rosters are built upon. While they may not grab headlines like a big-name edge rusher or a flashy cornerback, they address positions where the Falcons could really use some insurance depth or even a full upgrade. First up is center Nick Harris. I know center isn't the most glamorous position, but think about what this team is trying to accomplish. Protecting veteran quarterback Kirk Cousins, establishing a dominant ground game with Bijan Robinson, and finally finding consistency on offense. All of that starts up front. The Falcons didn't draft a center this year, and while Ryan Neusel is the favorite to take over, if Drew Dahlman falters, is that enough? That's where Harris comes into play. Drafted in the 5th round by the Browns in 2020, Harris was actually in line to be Cleveland's starting center in 2022 until a torn ACL in the very first preseason game sidelined him. It was a brutal setback. Then, in 2024, just as he was working his way back, he fractured his fibula early in October against the Eagles. 2 devastating injuries in 3 years. But here's the key. When he's been healthy, he's looked like a starting caliber center. This isn't just a career backup. This is a player the Browns trusted on their offensive line. The only reason he isn't starting now is due to injury timing and how well his replacement performed. If the Falcons' medical staff is confident in his recovery, Harris could provide serious competition for Neusel, and at the very least, he would be a reliable backup. That's exactly the kind of depth you want in the trenches. Now let's move on to the most surprising name on this list. Kicker Eddie Piñeiro. Yes, kicker. Let's be honest. Young-Ho Koo was not the same player last year. Whether it was mechanical issues, mental struggles, or just a slump, his missed kicks were piling up at a time when field goals mattered more than ever. Here's what makes Piñeiro intriguing. At one point, he held the title of the most accurate kicker in NFL history based on field goal percentage, with a minimum number of attempts. That's not just good, that's elite. He's bounced around the league from Chicago to Carolina, but when healthy, he's been consistent. Just like with Nick Harris, injuries have been the issue, not a decline in talent. So what's the logic here? It's simple. Bring in Piñeiro and let him compete with Koo throughout training camp and the preseason. Worst case scenario, Koo rebounds and regains his form due to the pressure. Best case scenario, you have 2 viable kickers and can go with the hot hand. But what the Falcons absolutely cannot do is ignore this position. Kickers can make or break a game. There are no do-overs when the clock is winding down and the game is on the line. To sum it all up, here's the big picture. The Falcons have made moves in the draft and in free agency. But if the front office truly believes this is the year to go all out, then grabbing these 4 veteran free agents makes too much sense to overlook. From Zadarius Smith's ability to generate pressure to Asante Samuel Jr.'s proven skills in the secondary to Nick Harris's sneaky value in the trenches and Eddie Piñeiro's potential to stabilize the special teams, these factors could make all the difference. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more updates. I'll see you next time. Go Falcons!